I want to tell you something that might sound impossible right now, but December is actually standing at your door with gifts that already have your name on them. Not because you've earned them, not because you've done everything perfectly, but because you finally stopped blocking the door. I've seen this truth play out in my own life and in countless others, and right now, at this very moment, while you're listening to these words, something inside you knows exactly what I'm talking about. You've been working so hard, haven't you? Pushing, striving, making things happen through sheer force of will. And somewhere deep inside, you're exhausted. But what if I told you that the very thing you've been fighting for has been trying to reach you all along, and your struggle is actually the wall keeping it out? Let me be clear about something from the start. I'm not here to give you another list of things to do, another way to manifest, another technique to master. I'm here to help you understand something that changed everything for me. Something that's been true since the beginning of time, but that we keep forgetting in our rush to make life work. There is an invisible law at work in this universe, and it doesn't care about your doubts, your past failures, or how many times you've gotten it wrong. This law is impersonal, absolute, and always working. It's working right now as I speak these words to you. The question isn't whether it's working. The question is what you're asking it to create. December carries a particular energy, doesn't it? There's something about this month that makes people reflect, hope, wish for change. But most people approach December with the same tired energy they've carried all year. They want things to be different, but they haven't become different. And here's what I discovered after years of watching this pattern in myself and others. The universe can only give you what you're open to receive, not what you want, not what you think you deserve, what you're actually open to receiving. And right now, I'm going to show you exactly how to open yourself in a way you perhaps never have before. You see, most people walk through life with their hands outstretched, begging the universe for scraps. They say, please, if it's not too much trouble, could I have a little more money, a little more love? And the universe, responding to that energy of lack, gives them exactly what they're asking for scraps. But I'm going to tell you something that might shock you. The universe doesn't respond to your words. It responds to your consciousness. It responds to the vibration you're holding in your mind and heart. When you beg, you receive beggar's wages. When you demand with quiet certainty, you receive a king's ransom. Now, I don't mean demand in the harsh sense. I mean knowing, absolute knowing. There's a difference between hoping you'll get something and knowing it's already yours. Hope is wonderful, but it still contains doubt. Knowing eliminates doubt entirely. Let me tell you about a woman I once knew. She came to me absolutely desperate. Her business was failing, her marriage was crumbling, and she had convinced herself she was cursed. Florence, she said, nothing works for me. I try and try, but every door slams in my face. I asked her one simple question. What do you say to yourself when you wake up in the morning? She looked at me, confused. I don't know. I suppose I think about all the problems waiting for me. There it was. Every single morning, before her feet touched the floor, she was programming her subconscious mind for failure. She was closing every door before she even approached it. I gave her a new morning practice. Before opening her eyes, she was to say, Infinite Spirit, open the way for my highest good. Let the divine plan unfold perfectly today. I am a channel for miracles. She resisted at first. That sounds like lying to myself, she said. No, I told her. Lying is saying something you know to be false. This is recognizing a higher truth that you've temporarily forgotten. Within 3 weeks, everything shifted. Not because the external world suddenly became kind to her, but because she stopped blocking her own good. A client she thought she'd lost came back with a bigger project. Her husband, responding to her changed energy, softened. Money appeared from unexpected sources. This is what I mean by opening yourself. You must stop being a dam and become a river. A river doesn't hoard water. It receives and it gives, continuously. The same current that brings to you must carry away from you. This is the divine circulation, and you are meant to be a channel, not a storage facility. I once knew a woman who came to me in desperation. She had $20 to her name and rent due within the week. I asked her a question that shocked her. What are you giving? She looked at me as though I'd lost my senses. Giving? She said. I have nothing to give. But this was her very problem. She had closed herself off completely. Her hands were clenched so tightly around that $20 that nothing new could come in. I instructed her to give something, anything, with joy. Not from fear, not from obligation, but from the consciousness of abundance. She was terrified, but she obeyed. She gave $2 to a street musician whose playing had lifted her spirits. She gave freely, blessing the gift as it left her hand. Within 3 days, a forgotten insurance policy surfaced enough to cover her rent for 6 months. This is not magic. This is spiritual law. You must give as though you are wealthy, because in truth, you already are. The universe doesn't recognize your bank balance. It recognizes your consciousness. When you give from a consciousness of lack, you simply create more lack. When you give from a consciousness of abundance, you set in motion the principle that brings abundance back to you, pressed down, shaken together, and running over. But here's what troubles most people. They want to see the money first. They say, when I have more, then I'll give. This is backwards thinking. It's like saying, when the room gets warm, then I'll put wood in the fireplace. You must act first. You must demonstrate your faith in the invisible supply by your visible actions. Let me be clear, I am not telling you to give recklessly or to bankrupt yourself. I am telling you to break the consciousness of poverty by recognizing that what you give, you establish. If you give love, you establish yourself as a channel for love. If you give money, you establish yourself as a channel for money. If you give grudgingly, you establish yourself as a grudging receiver. I have seen this work without exception, without fail. The person who gives joyfully is the person who receives joyfully. Give, and it shall be given unto you. This is not philosophy. This is physics. This is the mechanics of the universe operating with mathematical precision. Now let me address something that troubles many of you. You say to me, but I have so little. How can I give when I myself am in need? And I tell you this, that very thought is the prison keeping you bound. You see, when you say, I have so little, you are making a declaration to the universe. You are announcing your poverty. And the universe, being the perfect mirror that it is, reflects that poverty right back to you with unfailing accuracy. But when you give from your little, you are making an entirely different declaration. You are saying to the invisible forces around you, I have plenty. I have more than enough. I am a channel of infinite supply. I knew a woman once, a widow with barely enough to feed her children. She came to me in desperation. The rent was due. The cupboards were nearly empty. And yet when I looked at her, I saw someone clutching, grasping, holding on with white knuckles to every penny. I said to her, You must give something today. Give from what you have. She looked at me as though I'd lost my senses entirely. But something in her recognized truth when she heard it. That very afternoon, she baked bread with the last of her flour. She took it to a neighbor who was ill. She gave with a full heart, expecting nothing in return. 2 days later, 2 days, she received a letter from a distant relative she hadn't heard from in 15 years. An inheritance. Not a fortune, but enough. More than enough to meet her needs and then some. Coincidence? I don't believe in coincidences. I believe in law. I believe in cause and effect. The universe was simply responding to a new vibration. She had shifted from I am poor to I am abundant enough to give. And abundance met her at that level. This is why I tell you, never wait until you have more to start giving. Give now. Give from where you are. Give cheerfully, freely, with no thought of return. And here is what I have witnessed time and time again. The moment you begin to give, something shifts in the universe. The very act of giving sets into motion a spiritual law as reliable as gravity. You cannot outgive God. You cannot outgive the infinite source that supplies all things. I knew a woman who was down to her last few dollars. She was frightened, desperate, wondering how she would pay her rent. And then she received a letter, a missionary appeal, asking for help. Every practical bone in her body said, keep what you have. You need it. But she had been studying these spiritual laws, and something in her spirit said, give. She sent half of what she had, not out of obligation, but out of faith. She was testing the law, yes, but she was also declaring to the universe, I trust the source, not the supply. Within 2 days, money came to her from 3 unexpected directions. A refund she had forgotten about, A small inheritance from a distant relative she barely knew. A payment for work she had done months prior and assumed would never be honored. The total was 10 times what she had given away. This is not magic. This is spiritual law. But let me be clear. You do not give in order to get. That is manipulation, not demonstration. You give because you are a channel, not a reservoir. You give because hoarding chokes the flow, and generosity opens it wide. You give because it aligns you with the nature of the divine, which is perpetual giving, endless supply, infinite abundance. Now, I want to speak to those of you who say, "But I have debts, I have obligations. Surely I must pay what I owe before I can give." No, you give first. This sounds reckless to the intellect, but it is wisdom to the spirit. When you give first, you are placing God first. You are saying, "I acknowledge the source of my supply, and I honor it above all material claims." Pay your tithes, give your offerings, do it consistently, faithfully, joyfully, and then watch as your debts dissolve, as doors open, as the way is made clear where there seemed no way at all. I have seen debts of thousands vanish as though they never existed. I have seen creditors suddenly become lenient, forgiving, even generous. I have seen money appear in the exact amount needed, at the exact moment required. But it always begins with giving. There is a divine order to abundance. First you give, then you receive. First you bless, then you are blessed. First you release, then the channel opens. This is not philosophy, this is the mechanics of manifestation. I knew a woman who owed money to 7 different people. 7 different debts, weighing on her consciousness like stones. She came to me in desperation, saying, "I cannot pay anyone. I have nothing." I asked her, "Do you have anything at all?" She said, "I have $5. I told her, "Give $1 away as an offering, not to your creditors, to someone who needs it more than you. Give it with joy, as proof to the universe that you trust the supply." She looked at me as though I had lost my senses, but something in her shifted. She found a family that needed food. She bought bread and milk with that dollar and left it at their door. Within 3 days, an old friend repaid a forgotten loan. Within a week, she had received enough to pay 3 of her creditors. Within a month, all 7 debts were cleared, and she had more left over than when she began. This is not luck. This is law. When you give, you declare to the invisible, "I am not in lack. I am in the flow of supply. I trust the source." And the universe, which responds only to consciousness, rearranges itself to match your belief. But understand this clearly. You cannot manipulate this law. You cannot give with one hand while clutching fear with the other. You cannot give to get and expect the windows of heaven to open. The motive must be pure. The heart must be open. You must give because you understand that all supply comes from God, not from people, not from circumstances, not from your bank account. I have watched people tithe when they had barely enough to eat, and seen abundance return to them tenfold. I have watched others give away their last coin in faith, and witnessed miracles unfold within hours. This is not about recklessness, it is about consciousness. When you give from a place of trust, you are in harmony with the giving nature of the universe itself. The invisible supply is limitless. There is no shortage in spirit. Every dollar you give creates a vacuum that divine substance rushes to fill. Every act of generosity signals to the law. I believe in infinite supply. And belief, my dear friend, is the very thing that manifests. Now, I want to share with you something that transformed my entire understanding of money and success. It's what I call the principle of joyful expectancy. You see, most people approach their desires with a sense of desperation or anxiety. They want the money, yes, but they want it with clenched fists and furrowed brows. This very tension repels the good they seek. I learned to replace anxiety with joyful expectancy. When I sent out my words, my affirmations, my prayers, I didn't sit around worrying whether they would manifest. I went about my day with a light heart, watching for signs, remaining open to surprises. I expected my good to come, but I didn't strangle it with impatience. There was a time when I needed a substantial sum for a particular purpose. Instead of lying awake at night, calculating and scheming, I simply declared, "Infinite Spirit, open the way for my immediate supply." Let all that is mine by divine right now reach me in great avalanches of abundance. Then I went to a concert. I enjoyed myself thoroughly. I was light, free, expectant, but not desperate. Within 3 days, the money came through a channel I had never anticipated. You see, when you're tense and anxious, you create energetic blocks. When you're joyfully expectant, you become magnetic. You draw your good to you effortlessly. This is the subtle difference between faith and fear. Faith is relaxed. Fear is tense. Faith knows. Fear hopes and doubts. The manifestation responds not to your words alone, but to the vibration you carry. Are you vibrating with trust or with terror? I always tell my students, act as if it's already done. If you've declared your prosperity, walk as a prosperous person walks. Speak as they speak. Give as they give. Not from a place of pretending, but from a place of knowing that in the invisible realm, it is already accomplished. You're simply allowing the visible world to catch up with the spiritual reality you've claimed. Now, I want to address something that trips up so many people on this path. They say, but I've been affirming for weeks, months even, and nothing has changed. The money hasn't come. The relationship hasn't manifested. Where is my demonstration? Here's what you must understand. There is no such thing as unanswered prayer. Every word you speak, every thought you think with conviction, sets something in motion in the invisible realm. But manifestation works on divine timing, not ego timing. The universe doesn't wear a wristwatch. It operates according to perfect order. Sometimes the delay is actually divine protection. I've seen it countless times, someone desperate for a particular opportunity, pounding on that door with all their might. The door stays closed. They feel rejected, abandoned by the universe. Then, 6 months later, something far better appears. Something they couldn't have imagined when they were so fixated on that one closed door. Looking back, they realized that delay was divine orchestration, saving them from what would have been a limitation. Other times, the delay exists because you're not quite ready for what you're asking. Not because you're unworthy, never that, but because the consciousness that can hold what you desire hasn't fully formed yet. Think of it like pregnancy. You can't rush a child into the world before it's fully developed. There's a gestation period for every manifestation. The invisible work must be complete before the visible form can appear. This is where patience becomes a spiritual virtue, not a passive waiting, but an active knowing. You're not sitting around hoping something might happen. You're standing firm in the knowledge that it is already done. You're maintaining your position. You're holding the frequency. I knew a woman who affirmed for years for her right work. Years. Others might have given up, declared the law didn't work, returned to struggle. But she held steady. She didn't waver. And when her demonstration finally came, it was so magnificent, so perfectly aligned, so abundantly beyond what she'd even asked for, that she wept with gratitude. The wait had been worth it because the invisible realm had been arranging every piece, every person, every circumstance to deliver not just what she asked for, but what her highest self truly needed. So when you find yourself in the waiting period, don't collapse into doubt. Don't start rehearsing the old story of lack. Instead, recognize that the invisible realm is in motion on your behalf. Speak the word of completion. Say it out loud. It is done. The perfect outcome is manifesting now. And then, this is crucial, act as though it's already handled. Not with arrogance, but with the calm knowing of someone who has mailed a letter and trusts it will arrive. You don't stand by the mailbox wringing your hands. You go about your day. I knew a man who was waiting for a business deal to close. Months went by. His partners were anxious, his investors were pulling back. But he had spoken his word. He had claimed divine timing. And instead of collapsing, he used that waiting period to prepare. He organized his operations, he trained his team, he refined his vision. When the deal finally came through, it came through bigger than originally planned, and he was ready. He didn't have to scramble. The waiting period wasn't wasted. It was purposeful. The invisible realm was preparing him, while it prepared the outcome. This is what people miss. They think waiting is passive. They think it's dead time. But in the invisible realm, waiting is active. It's construction time. It's alignment time. Forces are gathering, pieces are moving, hearts are softening, doors are unlocking. Your job is to hold the vision and not let doubt steal it from you. Now, let's talk about something that might surprise you. Sometimes the manifestation comes in a form you didn't expect, and you almost miss it because you were looking for a specific package. I've seen this happen so many times. Someone is praying for financial security, and they're watching their mailbox for a check. But the universe sends them an idea, an introduction, an opportunity that requires them to step forward, and they ignore it because it doesn't look like the answer they had in mind. This is the great disconnect. You're asking for bread, but when the universe hands you seeds, soil, and sunshine, you complain that it's not bread. You don't see that you're being given something far more valuable, the means to create an endless supply. The universe doesn't work on your timetable or through your preferred channels. It works through the path of least resistance, through the door that's actually open, not the one you've been staring at for months while it remains locked. I've seen this pattern repeat itself endlessly. A woman prays for healing, then refuses to visit the doctor who could help her. A man asks for business success, then ignores the networking event that makes him uncomfortable. Someone asks for love, then stays home every evening because meeting new people feels too vulnerable. They're all waiting for divine intervention that looks like magic, effortless, instant, requiring nothing of them. But real manifestation is a co-creative process. You provide the desire and the faith. The universe provides the pathway and the opportunities. And then you must provide the action, the courage, the willingness to meet the universe halfway. Here's what many people misunderstand. When you plant a seed, you don't dig it up every day to check if it's growing. That would kill it. But you also don't just walk away and forget about it. You water it, you give it sunlight, you tend the garden. You do your part while trusting the seed to do its part. Your demonstration works the same way. You can't sit in anxious obsession, checking constantly for results, demanding proof every 5 minutes. That energy of doubt and desperation chokes the life out of your good before it can fully form. But you also can't use faith as an excuse for passivity. Real faith is active. It walks toward the good it seeks, while trusting that the path will be made clear step by step. The instructions come through intuition, through doors that open, through people who appear, through ideas that won't leave you alone. And you must be willing to act on what you receive, even when, especially when it doesn't match the picture you had in your mind. Because the universe sees what you cannot see. It knows connections and possibilities that are invisible to your limited perspective. I once knew someone who prayed for financial abundance. She affirmed, she visualized, she held the mental picture. And then one day, a friend mentioned an opportunity, a position in a new field, something she'd never considered before. Her immediate reaction was no. It didn't look like the abundance she'd imagined. It required her to learn new skills, to step into unfamiliar territory. It wasn't the comfortable, easy windfall she'd pictured. But something whispered to her, a quiet knowing beneath the noise of her preferences. And she said yes. That position led to connections she never would have made. Those connections opened doors she didn't know existed. Within 2 years, she had not only the financial abundance she'd requested, but work that fulfilled her in ways she hadn't thought to ask for. The universe had seen the larger pattern, the greater good. This is why we must develop what I call spiritual flexibility, the ability to bend without breaking, to remain open even when circumstances seem to be taking us away from our goal. The bamboo survives the storm not because it's rigid, but because it knows how to yield. Your intuition might direct you to take a walk at a specific time. That walk might lead to a chance encounter. That encounter might spark a conversation. That conversation might plant a seed that grows into the very thing you've been seeking. But if you dismiss the guidance because it seems too simple, too ordinary, too unrelated to your desire, you block the channel through which your good must come. The universe is always speaking, always guiding, always orchestrating, but it requires your cooperation. It requires you to show up, to pay attention, to follow through. You cannot demand that infinite intelligence deliver your good in a specific wrapper, tied with a specific bow, arriving at a specific time. That's not faith. That's control dressed up in spiritual language. Real faith says, I know my good is coming. I don't know how. I don't know when. I don't know through which door it will arrive. But I trust the intelligence that spins galaxies and orchestrates seasons to handle the logistics of my blessing. This is where most people stumble. They pray, they affirm, they visualize, and then they sit by the window, watching for the specific delivery truck they've decided must bring their answer. Meanwhile, their good is being delivered through the back door, and they miss it entirely because they're so fixated on their preconceived notion of how it should appear. I've seen people reject perfect opportunities because those opportunities didn't match the mental picture they'd created. A woman affirming for a romantic relationship turns down a wonderful man because he doesn't match her list of physical requirements. A person declaring prosperity ignores a lucrative job offer because it's not in the industry they decided was right for them. This isn't faith working, this is ego interfering. The universe has a much bigger perspective than you do. It can see connections you cannot see. It knows about the person you'll meet 3 steps down, a path you haven't even considered yet. It understands timing in ways your limited human consciousness simply cannot grasp. When you demand specifics, you're actually limiting what can come to you. You're saying, I only want my good if it arrives exactly this way. But what if the universe had something even better planned? What if your rigid requirements are blocking a miracle that would exceed anything you could imagine? I'm not saying you shouldn't have preferences. There's nothing wrong with knowing what you want. The problem comes when preference hardens into demand, when desire becomes attachment, and when faith gets replaced by a need to control the divine delivery system. True faith is flexible. It says, this or something better. It declares what it desires, and then releases the how entirely. It stays alert and receptive to guidance, willing to move in unexpected directions when inner wisdom prompts. I have watched countless demonstrations of this principle. A woman desperately sought a specific job with a particular company. She affirmed it daily, visualized herself in that exact position, but the door remained closed. Then she shifted her approach. She declared, Infinite Spirit, open the perfect door for my talents and abilities. This or something better. Within days, a different opportunity appeared, one she had never considered, in an industry she had not imagined, offering twice the salary and fulfillment beyond her original vision. Her rigidity had been blocking the greater good. This is not passivity, this is wisdom. When you release the specific form, you are not abandoning your desire, you are allowing it to manifest in its highest expression. The universe often has plans far superior to the limited pictures our conscious minds can construct. Prayer, true prayer, is not begging or pleading with a reluctant deity. Prayer is recognition. It is the acknowledgement of what already exists in the spiritual realm, waiting to take form in the visible world. When I pray, I do not ask God to create something from nothing. I recognize that the substance is already present, and I align myself with its manifestation. There is a vast difference between treatment and petition. Petition says, please God, if it be your will, perhaps you might consider. Treatment says, I give thanks that this is already accomplished in divine mind. One comes from lack, the other from recognition of abundance. I have seen people pray for years without results because they prayed from desperation rather than realization. They reinforced their sense of lacking the very thing they claimed to desire. True prayer lifts you into the consciousness where the thing already exists. You speak from the end, as though it were already done. Jesus understood this completely. He said, Therefore I tell you, whatever you ask for in prayer, believe that you have received it and it will be yours. Not believe that you might receive it. Not hope you will receive it someday. Believe you have already received it. This is the secret of answered prayer, assuming the consciousness of already having. When you pray this way, gratitude becomes natural. You are not thankful for something you hope might arrive eventually. You are thankful for what is already yours in the invisible, making its way into form. This gratitude is magnetic. It draws the manifestation to you rapidly. You see, when you live in this state of gratitude before the physical appearance, you are living as the mystics have always lived. You are walking by faith, not by sight. And faith, I remind you, is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. This is not blind faith. This is intelligent faith, rooted in your understanding of the law. You know that what you have claimed in consciousness must appear in form. It is done. The universe is already rearranging itself to accommodate your conviction. I have watched people transform their entire lives by this simple shift from begging to thanking, from anxiety to appreciation, from doubt to certainty. A woman once told me she had been affirming for prosperity for months with no result. When I listened to her speak, I heard the problem immediately. Every word was tinged with desperation. I need money. I must have money. When will it come? She was declaring lack with every breath, even as she tried to affirm abundance. I gave her new instructions. Stop asking, I said. Begin thanking. Thank the divine supply for the abundance that is already yours. Thank it for the unexpected channels, for the large sums coming to you under grace in perfect ways. Within 2 weeks, an old debt she had written off years ago was repaid in full. Within a month, she received a promotion she hadn't even applied for. The universe was simply waiting for her to open the door with gratitude instead of bolting it shut with desperation. You must understand this. Desperation repels. Gratitude attracts. Desperation says, I lack. Gratitude says, I have. And so I say to you now, as we approach the completion of this teaching, live in perpetual thanksgiving. Make it your daily practice, your hourly practice. Before your feet touch the floor each morning, give thanks. As you move through your day, give thanks. Before sleep claims you each night, give thanks. Thank the invisible for health, for wealth, for love, for harmony, for right action, for divine guidance. Thank it for protection, for supply, for joy, for peace. Thank it for the perfect outworking of every situation in your life. This attitude of gratitude keeps your consciousness high, your vibration clear, your path illuminated. You become a magnet for miracles.